Welcome to DNA of Grace. So, we are in this series of what is Christianity. And so, we started from God because Christianity actually started from Christ when he was born on earth, but God existed before. And Jesus says that he came from God, so we need to go back to God to find out how it happened and what's the plan and how it is happening. So, this is the fourth segment of it. So, this one I want to talk to you about why did man, we have come so far up to Moses now, why did mankind could not follow Moses? Now man was, they were already the ones who believed in what God said to Abraham, Isaac and Jacob and Joseph, and this is the lineage coming through, and they somehow rather went after Joseph, they went on to slavery because the king, the Pharaoh or king who came in Egypt after Joseph uh, didn't know much about Joseph, so he was scared and he put them in bondage, made life hard for them, and they became slave finally for many years. So when they went into slavery, it was difficult for them. It was difficult time till Moses came. And when Moses came, we know the story of Moses. Moses was born into Jewish people who believed in Abraham. They are the Jewish people. That's why they call the father Abraham. And but the time was different, and Moses' mom has to send him in the river. We know this story, but he grew up in the way of the Egyptian. So it took a long time for Moses to let go of it. In fact, 40 years in the wilderness, not an easy thing, but God was bringing him closer and closer and to himself and to accomplish what God has called him to do. But when God gave him the commandments, when he appeared in the bush and gave him the commandments, and he took it back, and people were told that this is very important to understand this part, because we think that why couldn't the people follow it? It's not that easy, because they were told that God has chosen them to bring them out of slavery and take them to a land of milk and honey. Even if you are a new believer, this is a process. God is always in a process. Or if you're not even a new believer, you're just watching to see what Christianity is about, God cannot reveal himself immediately to a person of everything who he is, because he's too big for us to understand, or it will just go over our head. So he chooses, just like in the in a person's life, different times periods have different time. You are a child and you are an adolescent, and then you become a young adult, and so on, right? So there is a process. God also work that way in process. But there are things in the spirit can be revealed to even to a child, because spirit has no timing frame. But God chooses to reveal things to us in a process, so that we live it and understand it, and then we move forward to the next level. So why I'm telling this is, when they were told by Moses, you are going out now and going to a land of milk and honey, in our minds, I'm sure at that time also, I thought, okay, this is good, land, milk and honey, and we don't have to do this slave work, backbreaking, making bricks and all that stuff. And fair enough, I mean, I would have thought the same thing, but that didn't happen that way. There was a process involved which Moses didn't have an understanding of it either, because the mentality that the people had at that time, coming out of slavery after so many years, cannot go straight away to a promised land. So then God has no involvement, even though God would have given it to them, but they would they would think, okay, everything is just going to fall into their hands. In a way it is, but there were things that they need to do also. Now this is where the DNA of grace has two hands. One is God and one is us. So it has to come together to make it beautiful. We sometimes think because grace is God is going to do everything. Well, it is. As far as sin is concerned, yes, he does everything, because we can't do anything about it. So he does everything, but believing and moving forward is our part. So if not, it is not kind of complete. So what happened to them was they came out and they started grumbling. They faced some difficulties in the wilderness, and they started they couldn't believe what Moses said at the beginning, because they were becoming more and more seeing things right in front of their eyes. They couldn't see the bigger plan or what is to come. And so they started grumbling and so on. They went around the same place for 40 years, round and round in the wilderness. So was it difficult for them to believe? It is, because how unbelief works is that when something doesn't happen to us, we just kind of doubt next time. So that is a normal process in us. So it's nothing wrong with it, even though unbelief is bad, but we can't help it. It just happens. When somebody breaks a word, they say they are coming on this day, they don't show up. Or it is a process, and then you start difficult to believe that person for their word. God was keeping the word, because God supplied everything for them, but they could not. It didn't happen the way that they wanted it. Let me put it that way. It is for all of us. So it went on to like that. So the commandments that God gave in the first, they couldn't keep it. So the covenant is when God has a part to do, and the people will do the part. Otherwise, this falls apart. So it doesn't work that way. So many times this covenant couldn't uphold itself, because the man didn't have the power to do it. So Moses went through a hard time with over 1 million of people, which are coming in a very bad state from there to take through hardship into a promised land. And this was the problem in the first covenant. So even the first covenant was given, and for them to realize, they can't, mankind, Jewish people, to realize that represent, actually, if it happened to us, it would have been the same. I believe that they couldn't realize, hey, you know what, we can't do this, we need help. But instead of that, they grumbled and rebelled against Moses, which was the representation of God. And because the law was with Moses and he had it, and he is called the lawgiver, so that became a problem. And that's how that covenant didn't work out. But since they did not ask, God actually prophesied this before, long before, of another covenant coming in Isaiah 53 and so on. In their own Jewish Bible, God kept on saying, I'm going to give you a sign, I'm bringing somebody else, and so on. So that was a sign of God's salvation for man coming in the future, but the problems were too much, they couldn't see it. And today, sometimes they can't see it because God did not work according to how they think he should work. Now that is something that we should learn. God does not exactly work how we think he should work. He works the way that he works. And we are to, even though he helps us, time and place here and there, whatever we need, but we are to change ourselves according to how he is doing things, how he is thinking, how he is planning this whole process. That's what Christianity is. This is in the middle, but there's another few more segments. This is the fourth one, 3 more, and then we will see how this whole thing comes about. That's the plan.